Heat. All right. What is the next unit? Heat. Now, whenever a chemical reaction happens, we know that heat is generated. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes reactions, when you touch them, will even feel cold. All right. So you must have done it in 8th grade science. Does anybody remember what is an exothermic reaction? What is it? Heat goes out, heat exits. So write down a reaction in which heat is released. And how does it feel? If you touch a reaction vessel in which an exothermic reaction has taken place, if you touch it, how do you think it will feel? It will feel warm or hot, all right? It feels hot or warm, whatever you want to write, all right? Now, let's go to this bottom here, all right? It says A plus BC is giving me DE. It looks like a math equation. Is that right? What is this called? This is called a chemical equation. What is this called?
Chemical.
A chemical equation, not reaction, equation. Now, what is, the arrow is the most important part, all right? So now, what are things A plus BC to the left of the arrow called? What are they called? Reactants or products? What are they called?
Products.
What is formed afterwards is a product. These are called reactants. Write that down. They are called reactants. And what is the DE called? D is called a product. Are you guys able to see what I'm writing? Reactants and products. All right?
Yeah.
What does the plus mean? A and BC. They are two different reactants, right? They are combining together. Does that make sense? They are reacting together to make a product. Now, the most important part is, after a chemical reaction, do you see the sign delta H? What does the delta H stand for? It stands for heat of reaction. What does it stand for?
Heat of reaction.
Heat of reaction. That's equal to, do you notice the sign there? Is it positive or negative? It is negative. So, if they write a reaction, and there is a negative sign, is that a negative sign? If before the number they put a negative sign and they ask you what type of reaction is it, you should be able to say the negative sign indicates what type of reaction? An exothermic reaction. Does that make sense? So they'll just write an equation, besides it they'll write a delta H and they will put a sign before it. If the sign is negative, you will recognize it as what type of reaction? As an exothermic reaction. Sometimes they will not put a number, all right, or a sign. Instead, on the product side, they will write plus heat. On the product side, what have they written? Plus heat. So, if heat is a product, what is the type of reaction? It is an exothermic reaction. We are still in exothermic. Write down, if heat is a product in an exothermic reaction. Do you understand? If heat is denoted on the product side, it is being given out and it's an exothermic reaction. Does it make sense?
Ms.Geeta, may I just add one quick thing? On your paper, you've seen this little triangle, right? Next to the H. Does anybody know it's a Greek symbol? Delta H. And what does delta mean? It means change. It means change. So engineers use that all the time in their everyday language. So when you see the delta symbol, that means there's a change in the heat. Okay? That's exothermic.
Okay? Now, let's go to an endothermic reaction. So what is an endothermic reaction? It's the opposite of the exothermic reaction, right? So is heat released or heat is absorbed? Okay? So right now, a reaction in which heat is absorbed. And how does it feel? How does it feel to touch? If exo feels hot, Scotty, how does an endo feel? It feels cold. Alright? It feels cold. Now, do you see the delta H sign? What is before the number? Plus. So, if delta H is positive, heat of reaction is positive, heat of reaction is positive in an endothermic reaction. Is that right? In an endothermic reaction. Or is heat a reactant or a product? Is heat a reactant or a product? Heat is a reactant. Heat is a reactant. Heat is a reactant in an endothermic reaction. Are we good?
So the heat, you'll notice, is on the left side of the arrow with endothermic on the.
Do we understand that? So if just the plain equation is given and they ask you the question, is it endo or exo, do you think you will be able to recognize? You will not be able to recognize? Ali, you just said no. You will not be able to recognize?
I know what I'm about.
You don't know what I'm talking about? If you take 40 breaks and come back, it becomes a little difficult. You need to go watch this video at home, alright? So that you get caught up on the 15 minutes that you were not in class. Okay, I'm recording this. Okay? Okay, you need to listen so that you catch up on the time you lost in class. Do you understand this? Okay, I'm moving on. What is heat? Heat is a form of energy. Heat is a form of energy that flows from a hot object to a cold object. It's unidirectional. Alright? It always goes from something hot to something cold. It's never in the opposite direction. Do you understand? And heat is a form of energy. What is energy itself? Energy itself is defined as the ability to do work. What is energy? Energy is the ability to do work. Alright? Now, what are the units with which we measure heat energy? Units, units, units. Units are very, very important. What do you measure time in? Not units. What do you measure time in? Minutes, seconds. What do you measure mass in? What do you measure volume in? Volume is measured in what unit? What unit? Liters, milliliters. What is the unit for density? Grams divided by milliliters. Grams per milliliters. It has two units, one on the top and one on the bottom. Is that right? What is the unit for heat energy? Write that down. It is measured in calories, calories or joules. Joules. You're learning it for the first time. Is that right? You may have heard calories, you may not have heard joules. Is that right? So what is the unit in which heat energy is measured? Calories or joules. Now, let's go to temperature. Now, students often think heat is the same as temperature. They think, oh, heat means temperature. How will I measure heat? Put a thermometer in. Does the thermometer measure heat? What does the thermometer measure? Temperature. Is the time, are they backing up before I ask them to back up?
Yes, they are.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap up my lecture right now. All right, let me actually stop it.
So I have a question.